Yeah, go ahead and get that out, man.
I'm ready.
Let's go. No power rings, nothing.
Get the crud out. Everybody cough.
Even if you don't have to.
It's posterity cough.
Yeah. Sympathy cough. I got it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. Or should I say, This Is My Vodka Podcast, if you followed us on April Fool's Day, which people freaked out about. And it was a lot of fun to see everybody's minds just melt. Anyway, I'm Perry.
Shaken, not stirred.
Yes. I'm your host. Thank you guys for being back here for another week. It's April. It's almost a month away from Kentucky Derby. Curtis and Swan are sitting here with me. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
How's it going? Yeah.
I always laugh after you guys say thank you because it's like neither of you know whether or not you're supposed to talk first. And so you just give us like, hey.
Hey-yo.
Well, not only is it April, this is also the last week before our very first live show, the Women of Bourbon at the Silver Dollar Club in Louisville, Kentucky. And I can officially say that we sold out.
Nice.
We sold
There
out.
we
All
go.
50 tickets sold out. I am super stoked about that. So, unfortunately, unless there's a huge last-minute push, there are going to be no more tickets available to those of you who did purchase tickets. Thank you. I am so excited to see you guys on Saturday and on Friday night at Cuvion for our meetup, which is going to be crazy fun. There's going to be, I know that there are a few of you all who have already said you're going to be there, but if you can make that, let me know at my Bourbon Pod over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so that we can make sure to get you in on the numbers. There's kind of limited space, and I wanted to make sure that I give them the right amount of people who are going to be there. But anyway, that's enough for business. I'm ready to drink some bourbon, and we're doing that right now with our Flying Blind. Yes.
I've been so heavy in like the turkey and Jim Beam territory lately. This is kind of throwing me off because it's not in that realm at all.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing.
I can confirm it's neither of those things.
It's so light.
It really is.
And I want just a little more on that nose, you know?
But the palate's got a lot more to it than the nose does.
Oh, yeah.
You guys getting like almost like a coffee?
Mm-hmm. For sure. But it's like coffee and raisins. Getting some raisins on there.
Yeah, it's the sweetness of the raisins that you're getting.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not usually a coffee fan, but I like this.
You're saying you hadn't had coffee in like 10 years or something?
Yeah.
That's
It kind of
crazy.
sticks out every time I have it. I don't know.
Oh, by the way, Swan and I were on Chad and Sarah's live stream this week, too, over on youtube.com/itsbourbonnight. So if you want to check that out and see Chad drop a bottle of pre-fire Heaven Hill, which he definitely did do.
Did it break?
No, just the cap.
Oh, well.
But
At least there's that.
Still, we had to.
Do you imagine if it broke, though? Man, let's not.
He did say, and this is something I've never done too, that he's never broken a bottle before. I've never have either.
Yeah,
Which
I
is
haven't either.
Nice. Knock on whatever I can find.
Yeah.
Wood, something.
Working in a liquor store, I think I got everyone covered. Broken plenty.
You know what? This is really. I have had this, not fairly recently, but somewhat recently. I'll say, this is a lot better than I remember giving it credit for. And I know that I'm talking like you guys know what it is, but
Yeah.
you know,
No, this is really pretty solid.
Yeah.
The palate's like, it's not overly complex, you know, but there's quite a few notes that I really like the coffee and the raisins. But the finish is where I'm kind of like, there's really not a ton there, but it's still really drinkable.
Yeah, the finish is awfully light, but I think that the palate more than makes up for the, just the overall quality of it.
It's kind of got like a almost honeyish mouthfeel to it. which is weird because it doesn't feel like it's super high proof, and that's usually something I kind of get from like the uncut full, like barrel proof stuff.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting, but
it definitely doesn't taste like it would be foolproof. I could get in trouble drinking this.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes down like water, really. Mm-hmm. It's a solid bourbon. I enjoy it.
No.
Now, what are we drinking?
Well, this is Maker's 46.
Oh, okay.
Which was kind of my introduction into finished products, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight on this week's episode. So, it's regular Maker's Mark, finished in French oak staves. Really, it's a pretty solid product. I don't have too many bad things to say about it, honestly, other than the finish. Nose is a little bit light, but I think that at the end of it, it's really just, it's solid.
As for somebody that doesn't reach for Makers hardly ever, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of impressive because the past few times I've had Makers, every time I leave it, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't get a full bottle. I think
And I guess to be a little more specific, was it Makers or Makers 46? Because I guess that's a little bit of it.
Just the regular standard offering of Makers. Mm-hmm. The last bottle I had of 46, I think I finished pretty quick. I enjoyed it a lot, but it was also when I was still blending it with Coke on occasion, and putting ice in and stuff. So,
because that's what I've noticed is the standard offering of Makers. I'm always just like I'll go for something different. But the Makers 46 always has it kicks it up a notch. Like if I'm getting Makers, I'm gonna go for that.
You know what's funny about Makers too is that it really does seem like the more steps that you take up in price, really the better the quality of the product. Like it's not always that case. Like sometimes it's kind of hit or miss. But I think that in this instance, everything is priced appropriately in terms of quality. Makers at the bottom, the private selects being at the top.
Yeah.
I think Maker's Cask is really good, really delicious. There have been some phenomenal private selects as well. It's really cool that, they're not all going to be completely different, but, the fact that there is something new to offer from bottle to bottle, barrel to barrel is really cool to me. So
I like that they have a very concise, product lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. But, all right, this is going to be the third week in a row that we've talked about this, which is really funny. But it seems to be the hot topic that's on our brains right now, and it makes me think, is there something that's about to happen? But anyway, so we were talking a couple weeks ago about how we would love to see Makers put out like a 10-year-old product.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And how we would all just jump all over it. Would you guys buy that?
I'd be more tempted to buy it, but somebody taking that route before has not really worked. Like I know when Bullet's lineup has the 10-year, I still typically grab the standard offering because of the price, or I grab the cast strength because it's the cast strength. I mean, it's just good. So that 10-year kind of gets lost on me a little bit. But it's also a weeded. Like I can't really think of anything other than like Weller 12 and maybe like the Old Fitz Bottled and Bond and the Rebel Yell 10-year that it's like an age stated weeder.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of them. So, I mean, I might be more tempted to grab it just because of that, but that's about it.
Okay, Curtis agrees.
Yeah.
He gave the sly head nod. But then the other half of that question was, you go on vacation, you go to the hotel bar, and they've got 3 bourbons there. Three of the big ones, Knob Creek, Woodford Reserve, Maker's Mark. What are you picking?
Knob Creek.
I'm picking that, yeah.
Probably Knob Creek, yeah.
Just the other two just don't, they're fine. They're good.
Yeah.
But they just don't do it for me in the way that Knob Creek does.
I think I just enjoy the punch of Knob Creek so much more than the others. The other two are like mellow.
Yeah.
They're kind of like a good introductory for people. And at this point, it's not that I'm above the introductory stuff. It's just I enjoy the almost punchier stuff because even though it's not cast strength, it's giving me more of that kind of cast strength feel.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I tend to lean towards that.
It has been interesting that my palate has developed into more of, I want more of the barrel influence and like darker notes.
Oh, yeah.
Than some of the others.
We I've noticed that a lot myself recently too. Is that not that I was, really looking for a lighter flavor profile, but it's just I've leaned more towards barrel heavy, interesting flavors, just more to it than just
the sweetness and
Yeah,
caramel.
exactly. And I think I even recently said too, I love Weller Special Reserve. It's a very good bourbon, but I'm past the point of being like, gotta get it. Gotta find another bottle of it. That's probably because I have enough of it right now. Like I'm not wanting for it, but at the same time, I don't feel that like, oh, they've got Weller on the shelf or behind the bar.
Yeah.
I will definitely get that. Anyway,
That's fair.
it's just kind of an aside. What we are here to talk about though is finished bourbons and some whiskeys. But before I do that, got to ask you guys what you've been drinking recently.
Absolutely nothing.
Swan has been dry as a bone.
Wow.
Yeah.
We were sitting there yesterday in Chad's living room, Chad and Sarah's living room,
Yeah.
just pouring up a storm. Swan had the absolute best self-restraint I've ever seen on
Didn't
a
have
person.
anything.
Not a drop of
Nothing.
bourbon.
Wow. That's
Isn't that
good for
something?
you, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's nice.
Yeah, no, it's been it's not been great. I'm gonna be honest. Like, there's definitely days where you go home. You had that day at work, and you're like, I'm just gonna have a drink when I get home. It's gonna be fine. But no, I've just been kind of taking in less bourbon as part of my diet, and then I have nights where I'm like, all right, we're gonna pour something special. C918's making an appearance tonight.
You texted me that the other day, and you said one Perry pour of C918, and I'm done.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hey, dude.
More power to you.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing I've had since the last podcast was one good size pour of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. That was it.
That's pretty funny.
I have been having Jim Beam Bonded.
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Such a good bottle.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I had the one that you gave me the rest of.
Which Swan gave me the rest of.
Yeah.
That's funny.
This happens all the time. Is like people are like, "Hey, take this and finish it," and I'm like, "Okay, somebody else take it and finish it too."
But yeah, that's what I've been having. And then I actually just picked up another bottle of Jim Beam Bonded.
Nice.
I really, really like Jim Beam Bonded, and when the 6-year was the first rumor was going around that it was going away, I was like, this is it. This is a replacement. And we tried all the Heaven and Hill bottled and bonds, and I'm like, these are all great, but Jim Beam bottled and bonds got something special, and people are overlooking it.
Uh-huh.
You got to go back to it, man.
Maybe that could be our next secret. The next Heaven Hill bottle and bond secret that we have.
It's just a cheaper version of Knob Creek to me. It's still that kind of like punchy, 100 proof, good Jim Beam goodness. So I don't know, I love it.
It's fun. We've had I would say it started with Henry McKenna, and then it went to the Heaven Hill, and now we're like Jim Beam Bonded.
Yeah.
It's funny that we've just that's been like our staple kind of.
Speaking of Henry McKenna bottled and bond, you heard about this?
No.
Won another award.
Really?
Yeah, same spirits competition that it did last year. But instead of winning best bourbon and show, it won best whiskey in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you couldn't get it before,
you
definitely
Nobody's
can't get
getting it now.
Gosh.
Yeah.
It's been such it's been like 2 years.
It's not happening, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. It went from like it's
Find
on
it
the shelf
anywhere.
everywhere
Yep.
to oh man, it's going to allocated, but you'll still be able to find it. To I've not seen it in 6 months. Like it's just insane.
I see it from time to time, but I think what upsets me the most about it is when I go to I'm not going to name any names, but we'll say Liquor Barn, and they have it sitting on the counter, limit 1.
Yep.
Limit 1. For Henry McKenna bottled and bond, we used to be able to get that in cases.
Yeah.
For $30 a bottle, and now it's limit 1 at
And
Liquor Barn.
sometimes
It makes me
price jumped up.
Yes, it did. But you know what? I am okay with it being a little bit more expensive. I don't mind paying $35, $36 for it.
We got away with it. It was a steal when we were drinking.
Yeah, because I made the mistake the other day. I walked in, I was like, it's on the shelf. This is nuts. They just announced it was like whiskey of the world and all this other stuff. And I go and I pick it up and I bring it up to the counter, and he was just like, oh, I've not changed the price tag on that yet. And I was just like, well, I can get it for the price on the shelf. He's like, no, it's $55. And
What?
Okay.
I'm like, what? Okay, now I'm putting it back.
I mean, look, I understand that is actually an appropriate price for that product.
No, it's not bad.
It is fully appropriate for that. But
it's the principle.
Yeah.
It's the principle.
It really is. It's so
the
frustrating.
principle that 2 years ago I could have gotten it
Yeah.
for $30.
I mean, I'm seeing it going from like mid shelf to all of a sudden it's behind the counter or on the top shelf.
Man, that upsets me.
But, I want to get mad, and I think it's just because I know I have to pay the extra money. It is worth it. Like, I mean, it's up there. I don't blame it. I just wish that Heaven Hill was getting a bigger cut of that increase in price instead of the stores getting it. Because they deserve it for making such a good product.
Yeah. That's us just being like 20-year-olds, like,
Back in my day.
back in my day. All the while, like, you got the 40, 50, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, and they're like,
Yeah, we used to be able to get age-stated wild turkey.
Yeah.
You know how much I would love to get an age-stated wild turkey 101? I would cry if I could just walk in and go, oh, 8
there
years
we go.
old. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Henry McKenna's gone from I could walk in and then decide, well, let's see if I can find the oldest barrel, to I walk in and I see one. I'm like, how much
See
is
if I
that?
can just find one.
Just to let me know.
Anyway.
Yeah,
that was
bourbons.
our side of ranting about Henry McKenna. Just to wrap up what we've been drinking real quick, I did a really fun live stream collaboration last week with the Mash and Drum, Jason, where we got sent a sample flight from Monica and Brian and Tammy, and we did them blind, and it was really cool. The results, I thought for sure that the number one that I picked was an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and it was not. It was a Whistle Pig Rye pick.
Wow.
It tasted just like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I was ready to lose my house over it. I was so sure about it, and I was wrong.
You were dead wrong, too.
Wrong.
Yeah,
Like,
he was
not
pretty
even
adamant.
close to it.
Wow.
Brian's like, oh, Perry's going to lose his mind when he finds out what this actually is. And I sure enough did.
Yeah. At least it was good.
Yeah. No, it was very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they picked some really good diverse stuff for that
And
lineup.
if you want to go see the results of that, youtube.com/This Is My Bourbon Podcast. So we can do that. And the first half of that is over on Jason's channel as well at the Mash and Drum. But anyway, let's pour something so we can get into this conversation.
Yeah.
So I noticed something, too. I said this to you guys before we started, that I have a bottle of Angel's Envy that I've had for probably 3 years at this point. Not once have I looked at it and realized it's a pick from Liquor Barn. Like, it's over halfway gone. And I haven't realized it until right this second. And it frustrates me. But
Because
anyway.
you talked about it multiple times. You're like, Angel's Envy is da-da-da-da.
Yeah. I haven't had this in a while. You know, we talk about from time to time whether or not we like Angel's Envy. It's fine.
I will say Angel's Envy finished dry. That's a good one for
Well,
me.
that is also on the table.
I know. I'm just saying.
That will be. We'll have that next.
All right.
Why don't we? So let's talk about finishing products. What is finishing? So the basic idea of it, of course, if you don't know, is that you're taking the original bourbon or whiskey or rye or whatever, and you're removing it from its original barrel and then putting it in a new one that may have been used for wine, for cognac. We got a cognac one on the table, which is really cool. Sherry. And sometimes even like Woodford will do, they will barrel it in another new bourbon barrel. Jim Beam does the same thing too. There's some other distilleries that do that as well. But the big debate recently has been whether or not finished products are still what they originally were called. So say it's a bourbon finished in sherry casks. Mm-hmm. Okay? There's been a lot of debate over whether or not that's still bourbon. Because in the legislation and the law, around bourbon, it says that all of the flavor comes from the grain and what it's aged in, which is that new charred oak bourbon barrels, and that is what legally makes it bourbon. And any other attempt at changing the flavor automatically disqualifies it from being bourbon. So my question to you guys is finished products, still considered their base spirit when they come out of that second, third, fourth, however many barrels?
That is such an interesting question.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something I've been just wrestling with a lot recently too, and just thinking about, because it changes my whole understanding of the bourbon industry.
Yeah, and what bourbon is.
Yeah.
This is just like knee-jerk reaction, but I lean towards it's not then. If it's stated that Perry just made a very...
Nope. I made a face.
Made a face. So I guess I'm going to go with it's not. Just based off the wording and the description of exactly what, like the legal jargon of what it is.
And that's how I've been leaning too, is thinking, no, it's not still bourbon. Now, I don't have any problem with a distillery on their bottle saying Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in whatever casks.
Yes,
because whatever barrels.
That's what it was.
Exactly.
It was bourbon that we finished.
And I think that if you're going to do that, it needs that caveat on the label to then still qualify for all of its quote-unquote legal qualifications. My point is that it just seems to go against what bourbon actually is.
I would kind of agree with you guys. I don't think it's necessarily bourbon anymore, but I almost prefer them put Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in blank than just say this is just a whiskey.
Yeah.
Now, just because then you kind of get the descriptor of what it was beforehand, before it got finished. So, I mean, I like the way that it's worded now. I'm perfectly fine with it because then at least I know that, it's, say, for instance, like the Bell Mead that's sitting on the table. I know this was their normal bourbon product they were using beforehand. They've just done something to it instead of thinking, well, it's Bell Mead whiskey. Was it the bourbon they used before? Did they make a new mash bill specifically for this?
Would they put it in?
Yeah, it's completely, kind of messed up if you don't have Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in blank.
I think that what is important about what we're getting at, too, is that this is supposed to be something to help inform consumers, making smarter buyers, smarter bourbon drinkers, too. Because, I mean, people aren't just doing what they used to do. They aren't just grabbing their handle of, Jim Beam, Cabin Still, whatever, off the shelf and going home. They want to know where that product came from, how it was made, even down to where the grains come from before it was actually distilled. And I think that finishing is just another point along the way where people want to know what's happened to it. And I think that the less clarity that we're given, the less transparency that we're given in the bourbon industry, the less people are going to want to be a part of it. And they're not going to have as much pride in it as they do right now. Because it's all just about honesty in the community. And, we go on and on and on about it.
Yeah, and when you have the information brought to you and you've learned it, it empowers you to actually know what you want to what you want to drink, what you like.
Yeah.
Empowers your palate, what notes or what, hey, I like bourbon more than finished stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the signifier of having that on there is perfect. That yes, I want to know that I'm drinking the bourbon, but it's also finished.
Yeah.
I think it's great for bourbon, nerds too. I mean, if you think about it, the more information on the bottle, the more likely I am to consider it special for whatever reason. If I see which rickhouse it came out of, how long it was aged, the date it was put into the barrel, the date it came out, a lot of people are putting more and more information. Bell Mead's doing it. Knob Creek just did their single barrels where they're putting more information on the actual labels.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's the people that are really serious about bourbon and finding like something new and having an experience with their bourbon, they're wanting the extra information. So the more information you can put on the bottle, the better.
Agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I just think that there's it for me, if there's not the clarity in it, it needs to be there. That's just plain and simple.
Yeah, it does need to be clear. Like, don't just put an entire like Word document attached to every single bottle just because it's more information.
I don't want fluff. You know, I don't want like
This is the recipe that I found in my granddaddy's attic.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. Like
he and
I
his
just
brothers
want to
distilled it during World War II.
That's all nice and good to have like a little bit of a story, but then I would just want to know what happened. How did we get to this point within it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Well, we got through that Angel's Envy pretty quickly. Do you want to try the Angel's Envy rye now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Swan, have you had this before?
Yeah, I've had it before. It's really good.
Yeah, I haven't had it in, gosh, probably a year and a half. Yeah, I don't think it's been touched since we had it on that, like...
Christmas episode?
Yeah, did we have it for that episode?
I think we did.
I can't remember.
Because I always mention Angel's Envy Finished Rye as a Christmas bourbon because it just tastes like
I'm sure we
spice
did.
and
yeah. Now, this is an interesting one. This is a rye finished in rum barrels. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember the nose being like that at all.
In terms of the...
Well, it's funny because I think it's a product of me being a more informed drinker, but I'm actually finding the rye in there, where before what I was finding was just like maple syrup.
Yeah.
But now I'm actually picking up on the rye notes.
The actual grain itself.
When I first started like getting into finished anything, I always kind of thought rye would not lend itself too well to finishing until I had this. This kind of changed my mind on it a little bit. I don't know if it's the rum specifically or if it's just rye's kind of decent to finish with.
Oh, I think it could very well be the rum.
Yeah.
But, I mean, who's to say? I haven't had a whole lot of finished rye products.
I've not either. I've not actually seen a whole lot. I mean, I know there...
Well, I don't think that there have been a whole lot, period.
Yeah.
What, wasn't there one from Woodford, too? I can't remember.
Was it finished?
I think so.
I can't remember.
Woodford did a really expensive decanter-style cognac finish. But I don't know if... I've never seen it.
Yeah. I think the rum definitely caters well to the rye itself. It just has more of that spice.
Wow, that is sweet. Holy crap, I haven't had that in a long time. That is way sweeter than I remember it being.
Ooh.
Goodness gracious, that's like a sugar
sweet.
bomb.
I still stand by that it's a good Christmas bourbon.
I think it's great for Christmas rye.
Yeah, Christmas rye.
I think it's great for Christmas. That doesn't bother me at all. But this is like, you know those Sweet Tarts lollipops?
Yeah.
The big chunky ones? Mm-hmm. This is what that tastes like now. It's just so much sugar.
This is like somebody at Angel's Envy said, I want something that's sweet and spicy. Make it. And they just came up with this. Because it still has that rye kick. Just a little bit. It's not like overwhelming, but the sweetness is definitely there. It's forward with that.
I will say, if ever there were an instance of me knowing that my palate has changed since I first started this show, this is an indicator for me. And it's not to say that I dislike this now. I just like it significantly less than I did when I first had it. It is aggressively sweet. I think that's something that's interesting too with finished products. Is that you I mean, it goes without saying, but you're going to get something so off base from what you started out with. There's no way that this rye was overpoweringly sweet before it went into these rum barrels. And the fact that it changes its overall profile that much, that blows me away. And kudos to all the people who are attempting all of these different finishes and trying new things. Not everything's going to work out the first time, the second time. It's always kind of a crapshoot. So, the fact that people are putting forth the effort to find out what's going to work, I think that's pretty cool.
Man, it is super sweet.
It's almost like a pre-made cocktail.
Yeah.
Boy, it does make me miss Christmas, though. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I mean,
it makes me miss the holidays, man.
I think the only time I would be like, yes, is at Christmas time.
Gosh, I bet it'd be really good in some eggnog.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like Christmas time, right before, like on Christmas Eve, watching like this, like if you've ever watched The Christmas Story, after they open all the presents and it's the night after.
Yeah.
And they're like sitting just watching the snow fall.
Yeah.
And
it's perfect for it.
Yeah, it's perfect for it.
Yeah, it might also be nice. Like, I know when I eat something sweet and then I have something that's got a big sweet element to it to drink right after it, it kind of mellows that out a little bit. Maybe if you were pairing it with something, it would go really well. Other than just pairing it with Christmas. I mean, that's going to go well. But I don't know. I definitely want it at Christmas.
Here's how much I can.
I think that's the conclusion.
Yeah. Here's how much I can smell this, though. This glass is probably, like 1.5 feet away from my face?
Yeah.
I can still smell it. It's ridiculous. It
is potent.
Yeah.
It kind of has it really is like Christmas in a glass. Like now I'm starting to smell like chocolate covered pretzels and like caramel popcorn. Mm-hmm. It's so weird. It happened the way that it did. But...
And like gingerbread cookies.
Just Christmas. It's just Christmas.
It really is, yeah. And I've always said that since I've tasted it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Where should we move to next? Do you want to do this Belle Meade or?
Yeah, sure. You want to start with this one?
Which one's that? The cognac?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Now, I've never had. So, Swan, actually, I'm going to let you tell how you came across these bottles.
Yeah, so I went into a store and very top shelf, a guy said they'd been sitting there for a little while. They had a 3-pack of Belle Meade finished. And it has a cognac finished, a Madeira finish, and a sherry finish. I was really interested in trying the sherry up against the Revival that came out this year because they're both Oloroso sherry. But I wanted to also try the cognac, and it was kind of pricey.
Oh, yeah.
And the $3.75 of it, and the pack was a lot cheaper, so thought it'd be a good way to try it.
Do you like cognac?
Not really. I mean, it's...
Have you ever had it?
Just once.
Yeah. It's fine. I could see it being kind of a... I mean, if all the bourbon and the rye in the world suddenly just disappeared, I could maybe replace it with cognac.
I think I would go for rum.
Oh, yeah. That's actually a good point. I don't know why I didn't think about it.
See, I don't think I would go to rum.
Perry's going to vodka, and he's going to have a podcast
vodka podcast. That was a great transition into that.
Lucy thought that I was even... that was true.
You totally got me. I got up early, and you sent it to us, and I was just like, what the hell, Perry?
That's so funny.
And I looked at it, and it looked so official, and I was like, I really hope I don't have to...
Like, I hope he doesn't have to
make
do
it
that.
real. I had to make it seem like, I was really doing this.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, like, Lucy is having like a spin-off of the podcast, like, that's what's going to happen. And then I was like, oh, duh.
I just thought
April 1st. Yeah,
I thought he met somebody at Liquor Barn that was just like, let me invite you into the world of vodka. And then all of a sudden, Perry's cheating on us with these people from Liquor Barn.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on.
Now, you said if all the bourbon and the what? Rye was gone, you would go to cognac?
Maybe.
No scotch?
Scotch just doesn't do it for me.
Okay. But cognac does.
Irish whiskey I might be okay with.
Nah, I can't do Irish whiskey.
Okay.
I had Armagnac for the first time recently. That's pretty good.
What about Japanese whiskey?
Maybe. I don't mind Japanese whiskey.
Yeah,
that
I
much.
like Japanese whiskey. It's very peaty, but that's for another day. Like
that's totally.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite of desert island bourbons.
I'm getting an odd sweet note. I want to say like an apricot.
Yeah. I'm finding something kind of savory in there too. Mm-hmm. And I'm not super...
Gravy?
Gravy?
I'm getting like a gravy.
I was thinking olive juice.
Oh, okay.
I'm not kidding.
We were way off on that then. We were not on the same brain on
He's
that
having like gin and tonics and olives and stuff, and you're having Denny's.
Yeah.
What's the proof on that, Swan?
I think they're all the exact same proof, and let's see, 90.4.
Odd. But, okay, fair enough. It's awfully sweet on the palate, too.
Mm-hmm. Not much on the finish.
I don't think I like it.
Not a huge fan.
Yeah.
This one's a hard pass for me.
Yeah. I'm glad I tried it.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. Like, if you were just looking for something different.
Yeah.
And maybe if you were just a big cognac fan, this might be for you. But
I mean, if this were, one of the things that we always kind of say about finished bourbons, too, is that, say you have a bourbon that's finished in Cabernet barrels, that, allows you the opportunity to offer something to somebody who may not be a bourbon drinker. Maybe they like wine or, in this instance, cognac. This would be a really good way to kind of bridge the gap between the two of them and get them into something different. And, eventually they might go to straight bourbon or bourbon and Coke or whatever. But this is not for me. That scene?
I'm in agreement. It's not.
That scene in Parks and Rec where Tom has really been wanting to get into that gentleman's club. I say gentleman's club, but it's not a strip club. But and Leslie at the end of it, clears out a room for him and everything, gives him a smoking jacket and a cigar and a glass of scotch, and he sits down. He takes a drink and he goes, I do not like this.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about this.
I do not like
this.
would you consider this to be a starter bourbon for somebody to bridge the gap? It would be a starter bourbon
From
for somebody
cognac?
very specific.
I think this gives too much of a misconstrued notion of hey, you're trying to get into bourbon, try this.
You know what I think about this? I think that this is something that you should have not in between your first steps of bourbon, but rather somewhere down the road when you've already... If I had had this maybe a year ago, I probably would have been off
Bourbon's
of
not for me.
Yeah. Not a year ago, rather, longer than
Wait.
that. But my point being that this should be something that you have after your palate's developed.
Yeah, I like being able to pick the bourbon notes out of it and then kind of find out what the cognac did to it.
It's very tobacco-y.
It is,
It's
yeah.
very tobacco-y.
I think I like it better than you two do, but not by a whole lot. I mean, it's...
I think Perry dislikes it the most. I'm right next to him, and then you're right behind.
Which is fine. It's divisive. Maybe I just like cognac and I need to go get a bottle. Who knows? I mean, it's sweeter, and I like some of the sweeter bourbons. I tend to lean super sweet, kind of like the Angel's Envy rye, or
Super
really
dark.
Dark and savory, like George T. Stagg territory. Yeah. Man.
Yeah.
I don't know about it.
It's like a chewing tobacco in my mouth.
See, I've never chewed tobacco before, but I've
smoked, smelled it.
Yeah.
Even if you have smelled chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of...
I smoke cigars.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder how this would pair with a cigar. Would it would the cigar cancel out some of the tobacco notes that I was getting, or?
I think this would, heighten the cigar so much that I'd be like, wow, this is just
I can't
too
do either
much.
of these.
Yeah, I can't do any of these. I don't think it would pair very well. It would almost be like I was having 3 cigars at once.
It's like how you don't pair a sweet wine with a sweet dish, because it just winds up being too sweet.
Yeah. So what do we got now?
Well, like I said, it was a 3-pack, so we're going to try the sherry because I wanted to kind of compare it, at least mentally, to the Revival that came out this year. Which that one I think was a 12 to 15 finished in Oloroso sherry casks. This one they said is about a 9.
I really do like that Wild Turkey Revival, though.
I do too. I really liked it, and it seemed like for a lot of people it was growing on them. It was something I really liked from the get-go.
Yeah.
I think I even told you guys, I was like, oh, what have you been drinking recently? And for like a month in a row, it was just a more
Turkey Revival.
Yeah.
All right. I'm getting like black pepper on the nose.
This seems like it's a lot more sherry forward than the Revival.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I thought that the Revival actually had some really good bourbon notes to it.
Yeah, I did. And it might be because, Kurt kind of said this earlier. We're kind of looking forward to picking out the darker notes, the wood and that kind of stuff, and that extra age that it has, being 12 to 15, kind of stands out a little bit more.
The palate is raisins. Straight raisins.
I get raisins on the nose. I totally get raisin on the nose.
The palate is a raisin.
It's definitely a raisin.
Thank you.
It's like a honey-covered raisin. Mm-hmm. Because the mouthfeel is really thick.
A date. It's a date.
It's a date. It's so thick. And
yeah.
I mean, it's like I just took a spoonful of honey and ate it.
Yeah, there's not many 90 proofers, and I'm like, this needs some water in it.
How does this happen? This is weird.
Yeah.
This is very
Like this
odd.
it shouldn't be. This shouldn't have finished the way that it did. It should have been lighter. It should have had, a little bit less body to it than it does. Here's the weird thing, though. I don't hate it.
No, I kind of like it.
I really don't mind it. It's not my favorite thing, but
It's not what I was expecting.
It's definitely not what I was expecting.
But it's not terrible. It's pretty good.
I'll say, when you have the Jefferson's finished stuff and you have the Wild Turkey Revival, you get hints of what it's finished in. If you're trying to introduce somebody to what finishing can really, really do to a whiskey, this is kind of like a volatile change to something.
Yeah.
So if you want more than just a hint of it, this might be for you.
Yeah, to me, this is like they put whiskey into the barrel. They took it out of the barrel or whatever they aged it in. Sorry, and then you were like, "Wow, I just had what was in the barrel."
Yeah.
What I finished it in completely.
This is weird.
It's so odd.
It's not that this is an instance of whether or not finishing has been right or wrong.
Yeah,
But it's almost like it's over finished.
I put some water in it. It actually did something kind of interesting to it. Just the nose, even. It brought out some of the bitterness in it, but almost like kind of a dark chocolate bitterness.
And it smells a little bit more green. There's some more herbal notes to it as well.
Mm-hmm. And the taste kind of reflects it as well. There's a lot more of the bitterness on the taste, though.
That is so weird.
It's really strange because, I never would think to put water in a 90 proof bourbon ever. But with the finishing, maybe that's something you need to experiment with, is putting a little extra water in there.
because that did change how I felt about it. I feel like I would enjoy that way much more than without water.
I don't think I would pick up a full bottle of this either. But they're definitely doing something completely different. I've had the Bellmead and the Bellmead Cask Strength, and I think the Bellmead, the standard offering is, it's pretty good. It's nothing spectacular. The Cask Strength is absolutely wonderful. And I think some of the viscosity that I get from both of these kind of comes from the Bellmead having just the Cask Strength having such a honey quality to it.
Bell mead honey.
Yeah.
That's what I figured this would be like. Like if because I've not had Bell mead honey.
No.
But I would imagine that it tastes like this.
I could definitely see that.
Weird. So weird, dude. If you had blinded me with this, I would have said it was some kind of honey barrel finished. I don't know.
It's really different.
I don't know. I want to ask too, just so we can wrap things up before we get into the review. Overall, just what are your all's feelings on barrel finished products, or just finished products in general? Would you recommend them to people? And if so, who in particular would you recommend them to?
I think I would recommend them to someone, but I would not say I wouldn't recommend it to a beginner or somebody just getting into bourbon, just trying something that's bourbon, because it's just going to change your overall perception of it. Like, you're going to taste that and be like, oh, that's what bourbon is, you know? I think it's kind of like when you first meet someone, the first impressions is like sometimes what determines how you feel about the person. I feel like that's kind of how it is with bourbon. So I would recommend this to a bourbon drinker that knows the qualities of bourbon, has really kind of not has like a super developed palate that like can pick everything out, but just somebody that's aware, knows of it, and of bourbon, knows the characteristics of it, and then would be wanting to try something new,
Sure.
Kind of branch out to be like, hey, what else does this, bourbon community, this industry offer?
I gotcha.
I think that's where I'm kind of at.
I think I would offer it to very specific, like, two groups of people. People that don't really like cask strength but have a good developed palate.
Sure.
Because the cask strength is like, kind of like we mentioned, it's getting into that George T. Stagg territory. I like the dark notes, the extra wood, like the bite. I want to make sure it's non-chill filtered, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would also recommend it for people that are trying to bridge that gap between wine and that being their favorite thing, but them kind of getting into bourbon. Like, I remember listening to the Old Carter episode and him being just super into wine. And people like that, I would really recommend them getting into something like this to try it, because it's going to be a blend of two qualities they really like.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how I would feel if I was a wine drinker and then transitioned and was like, oh, let me try this. I don't know if I would like it.
Well, but I think that it would be a good way to start that transition.
Mm-hmm.
I think that because maybe I said it earlier, your palate's not accustomed to bourbon.
Yeah.
But it's accustomed to wine. So you're going to have something that helps you bridge that gap into maybe liking bourbon. It doesn't have to be that you like it. It's just maybe something that's approachable. Say maybe you just go to a party and it's, bourbon heavy. You want to be a part of it, but you don't necessarily want to drink the bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wine finished bourbon, or you bring a wine finished bourbon, and that's what you have to be a kind of a part of the group. I think that that's an okay way to go about it as well.
I could see that.
Especially with the proof of wine being lower, you could probably throw some like ice cubes into the sherry finished Bell Mead and be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd probably taste something completely different every 5 minutes, but you'd be fine, and it would be kind of a good introductory for you. And at that point, you'd almost be getting wine with bourbon notes just at the proof. But
yeah, I think that finishing products has its place in the industry. I don't think that it's something that should be looked down upon necessarily, but I also think that we have to be a little bit more diligent in the way that we talk about it, in the way that we present it, or the way that the industry presents it, rather. I don't think that it's enough just to say, hey, it's bourbon. It should say it's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in port barrels or whatever. I think that's the appropriate way of going about it. And I think that most people are doing that. But for those that aren't, you're doing everybody else a disservice. You know what I mean? And you have to keep in mind your consumer in making sure that they are well informed and know what they're getting into. So
I feel like the only exception to that would be double oaked, because everybody kind of knows what that is.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and
I think that's totally fair, actually.
there's plenty of bourbon drinkers that they'll pick up double oaked and say, "Oh, well, like Woodford double oaked is in my opinion better than the single, just because it's adding more oak flavor." But as soon as you start finishing in something other than just
Oak barrel.
more barrels, more oak barrels that don't have something finished in it, it does get it's in a funny area.
Yeah.
That isn't. Would you consider double oaked? Like
It's finished.
Yeah, it's
It's
finished.
finished,
But
yeah.
would you consider it bourbon? Kind of how we were describing.
It's bourbon finished in something else.
Okay.
I think that's the blurred line between the two bits, is that it has, it's so weird to me because it has both of those qualities. It's a bourbon that's aged in new charred oak barrels, and it's finished in something, but what it's finished in is also new charred oak barrels. So
is it still bourbon?
I don't know. That's the
It's
one
like
bit
double- yeah.
that really throws me off.
It's like double oaked is the outlier of finished bourbons.
No, I think it is.
Yeah.
I absolutely think it is.
Isn't that the whole gimmick behind the 1910 is to be able to still call it bourbon? They had to put it back
Yeah.
into new oak barrels. So, and then you look at every other label, and some of them will say it's finished in a second oak barrel. Still just says double oaked in big text. That's the one that confuses me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair.
I don't know, but double oaked is good. I like it.
I do as well.
There's
Agreed.
not been many
I
that
do
I
as
have
well.
turned my nose up at.
Double oaked? Not so much.
Well, it's sitting on the table. We should have had some, but maybe that'll be what we finish off with. Anyway,
This is
yeah. So
interesting.
well, just to wrap things up, that was our conversation on finishing bourbons and ryes in other barrels or casks. If you like finished whiskeys, let us know. If you don't, as well, perfectly fine. At My Bourbon Pod is where you can find us on social media. I'd love to hear from you. And, if you like this, maybe we'll do some more finished products in the future.
Perry,
as well.
I hate to interrupt, but is this a swan in my glass?
That very well might be a swan in the Willet logo. Do you have a new favorite glass in the Pear Bear household?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm drinking out of my new favorite glass as well.
Oh,
It says Perry Pour on it.
Look at that.
Big shout out to my buddy Travis Gintz for making this glass happen.
That's
So,
cool.
anyway. As I said, that does it for our conversation on finished products, but we are not quite finished yet. We still have our review of the episode. This is Legent. Two true legends, one truly unique bourbon. It is a collaboration between Fred No and Shinji Fukuyo. I probably butchered that. I apologize. But
It sounded pretty good.
it's a mix of, not a mix, but it takes two different master distillers. One from Jim Beam, Fred No, of course. And actually not another master distiller. It says it was blended and refined by Chief Blender, Shinji Fukuyo. So, apologize for that. But it is Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, partially finished in wine and sherry casks. Partially finished is a really interesting way of phrasing that,
Does that mean that
It was
the only thing I could think of is if they sent half the barrels over, he finished them how he liked, and then
That's totally
here
possible.
We had unfinished product that got blended in with
Yeah.
those finished barrels.
I honestly have no idea.
I would
it's
like to
beyond
know
me.
what exactly happened.
94 proof. Every sip of Legend is worth savoring and sharing. Kurt, how do you feel about the packaging of this one?
I actually think it's pretty nice.
I like the bottle.
Yeah.
I like some of the aspects of the design.
I think so too.
But I think overall, I think that the actual design of it is just kind of weird. Like there's not a whole lot of clarity to it. I would say.
think the bottle is very nice. It's very well
Yeah.
designed. It feels like very significant in the hand.
Yeah.
I think the layout of the copy. I know this is like getting into like graphic design.
This is why I asked you, though.
I know. I will say the swash, like the stroke, seems a little abrupt to me.
I think that was intentional, though. I think that was supposed to mirror Japanese printmaking or Japanese
Yeah, and I get that.
You know what I mean?
I just wonder if maybe it fit better with the text on the bottom.
Could have.
And then like the description on the back's a little hard to read.
Yeah. Remember, folks, we started the show because there were 3 graphic designers that liked bourbon.
Yes.
And I had a apparel shop. So
yes, exactly.
This kind of conversation comes up from time to time. So anyway.
But overall, I think it's a pretty well designed bottle.
Yeah.
There's a few things that I would be like, well, maybe you try this rather than that.
Yeah.
In terms of the layout of the type, but overall, I think it's nice.
And like I said, I think I like the shape of the bottle better than I do the actual packaging of it. Or
I agree.
I like the shape of the bottle for a specific reason. It's a blend of Kentucky bourbon. And have you ever seen Hibiki?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
They've got the stout cork up at the top, like the thicker cork, and then they've got the skinny neck into the wide body.
That's exactly what they went for
mixed with almost like a Russell's bottle. So they've literally blended the bottle shape.
Look at you, Swan. Look at you.
I may have dropped out of graphic design, but I still got something.
You've really spread your wings and flown right into the sun. You got way too
the
close.
bottle is really cool.
What do you guys think about the nose?
It's nutty.
It's nutty, and it kind of reminds me of buttered popcorn.
Yes, it does.
It's very buttery on the nose.
Very buttery. I'm getting like a cherry blossom.
I'm definitely picking up like the wine from the finish, for sure.
Going back to the Bell Mead, this is how you do something a little more subtly.
Yeah.
More nuance.
I agree.
Yeah. And I think with us having a palate that's kind of gone past that, it's nice to have something subtle as to where when I started, I have trouble picking up notes of things. This just smells like bourbon. So now that I'm able to hunt for the notes, this is great. Maybe with the Bell Mead, I would have appreciated it more when I first started, now that I think about it, because I couldn't pick up any notes other than just bourbon.
Yeah, I gotcha.
This is so cool. Just in the sense of, on the top it says Kentucky, Japan. It's so much like back and forth. And then
Did you take the cork out?
No.
Take the cork out and turn it upside down.
2 legends, 1 bourbon. That's
so
cool.
It's more than just the top message.
Yeah, it's more than the top message. And then also even on the left side of the bottle, it says a bold Kentucky bourbon by master distiller Fred No. And then you go to the next side of the bottle and it says blended and refined by Chief Blender.
Yeah. But I'm still kind of getting like a little bit of a honey note in there too.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. This is a very different nose.
I came in expecting, just because I've had Japanese whiskey one time, and I wasn't a huge fan. This is actually pretty special.
Oh, yeah.
It's something I can definitely sink my teeth into.
Huh. Well, having done just that.
I get the bourbon on the front of the palate.
You know what's weird? Is I'm very much getting that buttered popcorn flavor that I was picking up on the nose. Mm-hmm. Huh. There is a lot of corn up front. There is of corn on the front of the palate.
I do kind of... The finish is not super long, but I do like it.
No, I don't mind it. This is the interesting... This is one of the more interesting ways that a finish can be presented to me, in that it takes what you are getting on the palate and expands on it. It doesn't do it a whole lot, but it does it enough to where I still find the finish interesting.
I really enjoy the finish of it.
Do you?
Yeah. I think that's where I'm getting the influence of the wine and the sherry.
By the way, I'm picking up more of that cherry on the nose that you were finding.
Yeah. It's like a cherry blossom.
Yeah.
It's very of a floral.
It's very light.
Yeah. I think why it's so light is because of the buttered popcorn that I'm...
Yeah, I get the buttered popcorn. I get a lot of honey.
Oh yeah.
And the cherry's kind of taking a back seat to the honey, but it's there.
See, I'm not picking up on the honey.
I am getting so much corn on the palate. What's funny is that it started out for me on the front end. In my second sip, it started moving towards the middle. And more so into the finish as well. But the finish really is being overtaken by those finished notes. So the wine and the sherry.
Do you feel like this still holds enough of the beam profile, or have they just done something completely different?
No, I would not know that this was Jim Beam distillate by any means.
To me, has more of a Heaven Hill feel to it.
I totally agree with that.
Than Jim Beam. And I think it's 100% a product of the finishing and not the base product.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. Honestly, though, I don't know if this really tastes like it's been finished. I think that it has aspects of it, but I still find subtle red wine kind of flavors in bourbons from time to time. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, not that it's these big, bold, robust grape flavors that you get in a cab or something like that, but I still do find that oakiness, the raisin that we're talking about too, in bourbons. And I think that all of that is present without it feeling like it's finished.
What's the proof on this?
94.
I think the reason that I really do actually enjoy this, I can even see myself getting a bottle. I think the thing that I like about it is it's 94 proof, but it has the like robust flavors of a barrel proof, which is nice because usually I reach for the barrel proof because the 90-ish area just for me doesn't seem to have quite the amount of oomph for me as far as flavor. So the finishing, I think, if anything, just gave it a more robust flavor, even if that flavor is still kind of a normal-ish bourbon profile. Maybe just with some extra, wine in there somewhere.
Yeah.
This is really making me think. I don't know how I feel about it. I really like the nose with the buttered popcorn. I was getting more of a floral note on it. But then the palate happened, and that's where I started to realize some of the bourbon aspects and the spice and the punch and, like you were kind of speaking of. Mm-hmm. But the finish has an odd finish at the end, like at the very end. Is that just me? Did you get that?
No, I know what you mean. It's a little
bitter.
Bit bitter, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is going to be a really interesting review for us. And I feel like we're going to kind of, it's going to go one of two ways. We're either all going to be on the exact same page, or we're going to be wildly off from each other. Oh, man. Well, anyway, as we get into this, we have a review system of nose, palate, finish, and price. Each category is out of 5, and we tally everything up for a total out of 20. Who wants to go first on this one?
So for the nose, I think I'm going to give it a 3. There was something I really enjoyed about the nose, and I believe it was the floral note that I was getting, and a hint of that buttered popcorn. I felt like that was a nice kind of compliment to it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to give it a 3.
You know what? I sorry to interject, but I just figured out what the buttered popcorn flavor was on the palate that I'm finding.
It's the corn that you were talking about?
No, it's a jelly bean version of buttered popcorn.
Yeah.
It tastes artificial. That's so bizarre. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead, Swan.
I actually really liked it. I gave it a 4. I thought it was really good. I like the, and I think it may just because I like the smell of buttered popcorn. Like, if you go into a movie theater, I'm never super excited to get kernels stuck in my teeth or anything. But you walk in, you're like, this is a movie theater.
Yeah.
I really liked it, so I gave it a 4.
You know what's funny is I'm right between the two of y'all. I gave it a 3. Oh wait, no, you gave it a 3 as well.
I gave it a 3 too.
No, yeah, sorry. No, I gave it a 3.
Yeah.
I think that it's good, not great. It's got things that I enjoy, but I'm not over the moon about it by any means. The palate was my highest score. Well, tied for my highest score at a 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I thought the palate was where a lot of the punch for this one came from. Like, it had a whole lot of flavor to it. And I find myself thinking about that more than I do anything else on this. But yeah, 3.5.
I'm going to go with the palate a 3 again.
Yeah?
And it's I had all of those aspects and had more of the punch, more of the bourbon, spice and caramel. But then there was something just like bitter about it that I didn't really enjoy. I couldn't decipher what that was. It might have been the finishing of the product, but I still liked it. It just is. This has been a really tough bourbon. I mean, like finished.
Yeah, it's okay to call it bourbon.
Yeah, bourbon that it's puzzling me. It really is.
Yeah.
I gave it a 3.5. I liked it. I think I would like it better at a cask strength, or like
Or even 100 proof.
or even 100 proof, just a little bit more proof. Just because I feel like if it was even just a little bit more like proof heavy, maybe I wouldn't have that corn be so forward. Maybe it would be a little bit more oak that was kind of taking that in. So then I would have the kind of sweetness from the wine finish mixing with the oak instead of just the corn. Because there's some bourbons that I have the corn forwardness and I immediately think, this is just super high corn and maybe a little young.
Uh-huh.
And then there's others where, like even in like mellow corn where it's cheaper, but it's corn forward and I don't mind it at all. So I gave it a 3.5. It's kind of leaning towards the better, but still the middle.
Yeah. What about the finish?
So the finish I gave a 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the finish just as much as the palate. It's not super long, but it still has a good amount of flavor to it, and I like and you've mentioned this before, it's not kind of like that building heat to a Kentucky Hug or anything, but it's got kind of that viscous, like dripping honey feel to it, which I enjoy. So I gave it a little extra for that. I still think the higher proof would have been something I looked for.
Yeah.
I went with a 3.5 as well. That's the part that I enjoyed the most, is that it started to get towards more of what it was finished in, a little more of that wine, that cab feel. I would definitely agree with having the proof just a little higher. I think at that point it would give you more of what I was looking in a finished bourbon. But the finish was definitely my favorite part of it. So I gave it a 3.5.
The finish was my least favorite part. I gave it a 2.5.
Ah.
I was not a very big fan of the finish. It kind of gave me a weird aftertaste, too, that I'm not really a huge fan of. And while some of the flavors were there, I said originally that this was a good indicator of, I'm going to like the finish. But then the more I had it, the less I felt that way, in that it didn't keep going with the palate. It didn't present more flavors. It just tailed off, had the weird aftertaste, was done.
I will give you that a little bit, I don't know if you necessarily call it an aftertaste, because I usually get that right after the finish kind of stops. But after not having a taste of it for a while, it's almost kind of like a medicinal quality. It's not super strong, but it's there. Because, like I mentioned, it's with the finish, it's kind of viscous, so it's still sitting in my throat a little bit.
Yeah.
And I felt that it was kind of a blend. It was blending from the palate to the finish. That's kind of how I took it, was that the palate started to overpower that finish.
Yeah, I could see that.
What's the price on this?
This is $35 a bottle. I gave the price a 3.5. I think that it has a lot to offer that is not necessarily... This is very unique for a bourbon in this price range. The packaging is beautiful, as we were saying. It's definitely a not necessarily once in a lifetime, but it's limited, so there's going to be some of that aspect to it. You know, there are so many limited products that you can get for 2 or 3 times the price and maybe not be this good. I'm not raving about this by any means. If there was a little bit more to it overall, I could see myself bumping it up in price, but I think that it's a 3.5 for me. And so overall, I gave it a 12.5 out of 20.
I think I'm going to go with a 4. And I almost ventured to say a 4.5. I know that's like, pretty crazy.
Wow, that's high.
Yeah. And I almost did that, and I was like, no, that... The only reason I say that, though, is... So I'm going to give it a 4. But the reason I say that it's such a good price is just the fact that name another product that you'd be able to have a master distiller create the product and then have it mixed and collaborated with another...
Oh, yeah.
Another master of the work, and all the way in Japan and like cross the entire world for it to be finished how one person saw it. And I think that's why I think it's so cool, is that there's no other product that you're going to be able to find. And the fact that it's only $35 to me is a steal, just in the sense of getting something so unique, something that's so out of the box that you're not going to have. So I think that's why I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 4.5.
Wow.
Yeah. The only reason I did it is because, I know that with the Bell Mead, I got 3 375s for $100. That's $33 a piece, pretty much. About the same price as this.
Mm-hmm.
I like this a whole lot more. I mean, it's good. And then also a lot of the times that I'm doing these reviews, I kind of base it off other stuff. And pretty much every time we do a review, it's like, oh, that was really good. It was $60, but Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond is like $12, and you're immediately like, I should take a tick off my price point that I just put up there, because comparing those two is nuts. Well, then, like you said, you go to compare this to anything else finished exactly like this, and you're like, oh, there is nothing like this.
Yeah,
there's nothing like it, and you're going to be, if there is something like it, you're spending $60 to $85 probably.
Yeah, I could have easily seen them just with the way this bottle looks and, the limited availability saying, it's $80.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure one of us or, all of us would have gone in to get at least one bottle of it just to try it. And they didn't. They put it out. I think that's remarkable. So it's getting my highest out of the 4 categories for price.
I think that's fair. I just
that was the same for me.
I just didn't see the quality of it, I guess, in regards to everything else that was surrounding it. It's again, it's not bad by any means. It's just the way that I'm seeing the how it is.
Yeah,
just that kind of face value.
That's perfectly fine. I think I like it more than you too. So that's kind of playing into it.
Yeah.
Because if I found another bottle of this, I'm probably going to pick it up.
Yeah,
You're probably not going to go pick up a second bottle because you've already got one.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. It's meant to be divisive, just like all the Bell Meads that we tried and everything else. So it's.
I think I definitely would pick one up.
Yeah, for $35.
Yeah, I think that's
for
fair.
$35. I would.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about does it for the review. We got one segment left before we get out of here, and that's tips and bits. So, guys, what tips and bits do you have this week?
You got any?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Whoops. Someone was like, freeze.
Hold up.
I'm froze. I don't know. So my tips and bits is going to be Keeneland Spring Mead.
Yeah, heck yes.
Yes.
Heck yes.
The Keeneland Spring Mead opens on April 4th through the 27th. Our big campaign is See You at the Races, and all around town you'd be able to see like the Keeneland saddle towel flags, and just really like bringing the community together.
Yeah, you guys have done really well with the branding this year.
Yeah, we've really tried hard to do that and bring the community back into it.
Yeah.
And just really get them excited for the races. And,
I'm excited.
yeah, in terms of Lexington and the bluegrass, you always, the next time you might see somebody is like, oh, I'll see you at the races, or, something like that, because that's the next time I'm probably going to see you, or something of that matter.
Right.
And it's such a Kentucky aspect, and horses, and it ties in with bourbon too. So definitely come out to the spring meet.
Yeah.
And also that's a little bit of a plug because I work there.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
All right, got one now. I've been listening to even more music than last time around. There's this kid I found. He's 18. He has a YouTube channel, and there's kind of a stigma behind people that just grow their following on YouTube. But
Cough, cough, Justin Bieber.
yeah, this kid is something special, man. It's insane how talented he is. Like, the stuff he puts out compared to the album he just put out is completely different. His name's Quadeca. Yeah, he just put out an album, and he typically does like those, like, you can tell he's aiming for a radio hit, and then he put out this new album where it's kind of like that atmospheric, dreamy type rap and stuff. And he does this thing on YouTube where he does styles of rap, and he'll go through literally 100 artists and mimic them. And so he'll do, Jay-Z, he'll do Kendrick, he'll do all the big ones and even the small ones. And then you listen to his album, and you're like, he just did the styles of rap thing in the album. So at one point I'm like, that sounds like Childish Gambino. Oh, he's doing Logic now. Like, he just switches back and forth.
That's so cool.
But the thing is it's seamless, and it doesn't feel like it's forced. Like, you can tell he's just doing that styles of rap thing in this. It's pretty cool. He's got a new album out called Voice Memos. It's worth listening to.
Awesome. Yeah. I've been listening to a very funny podcast called The Grub. It's comedians. They do sketch comedy basically throughout. It's just ridiculous, stupid, funny nonsense that I enjoy. And I have to try not to listen to it at work because I wind up just laughing while I'm listening to it. That's really about it for me. I have been kind of slammed with work, so I haven't been getting to enjoy.
Yeah, that's why my tips and bits was Keeneland.
It was work. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
also, Railbird Festival come out.
Oh, heck yes. That does it for us this week. Thank you all so much again for hanging out with us. If people want to find you all on social media, Curtis and Swan, where can they do that?
On Instagram, you can find me at KurtCon, and on Twitter, Kurt_Con15.
And I'm at the Bourbon Finder on
Yes,
Instagram.
sir, you are. Yes. If you want to follow me personally, I am at PRitter1492. If you would like to follow the show, we are no longer at My Vodka Pod. We are back to at My Bourbon Pod. It was a very successful April Fool's Day joke, if I do say so myself. But anyway.
Perry's laughing at himself. It's awesome.
I had this idea.
Man, I'm good.
I had the idea at like 10 o'clock last night, and I was like, oh, I got to do it. And I mocked it up real quick at work, and I just threw it up, and people have lost their mind. It was great. It was fantastic. So anyway, at My Bourbon Pod, of course, is where you can find us. If you want to send in a question or a comment, you can use this My Bourbon Shop at gmail.com. Give us a 5-star rate and review on the old iTunes or wherever you listen. Tell your friends about the show if you haven't done that yet. Oh, gosh, what else? Bourbonshop.threadless.com is where you can find all of our apparel and merch. And then the big one, of course, is patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. For as little as $1 a month, you can become a patron of the show. We have a really fun, really cool little community. Once we hit our next goal of $250 a month, we are going to start doing pretty regular Google Hangouts with our listeners, as well as, I believe, doing live streams for the Patreon members where you get to see us recording pretty much every episode. So more info on that to come. Again, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. That about does it for us this week. I'll see you guys on Friday and Saturday for the meetup and the live show. I'm so freaking excited for this. I can't believe that it's already here. And then again next week for another brand new episode. But until then, I'm Perry.
I'm Curtis.
And I'm Swan.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.